So it is a Wednesday afternoon, and that means it's time for Mike DiMauro to come on and tell us what's going on with his rankings around the state. We, as of course, do every week, we will preview our Friday night game under the lights at Griswold Bacon Academy and Griswold in a Friday night Division III ECC showdown. And then finally, I'll have the question of the day for Mike. Previous questions that have gotten a lot of your attention is why does the ECC struggle in football, and why are strength and conditioning programs not more embraced despite the number of people in our area who own and run them. I have one for Mike today as well. But let's start with your impressions over now. Yesterday, and I'm going to say it again today because I thought it was a good line. Yesterday, I said the magic crystal ball. When I asked it about last week, it cited 80s boy bands and said bye, 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 because that felt like that's what everybody was on. But there were some games that impacted things and some teams that I think maybe kind of continue to define who they are. So what were your impressions from this week?
Well, okay, we saw a great game Friday. Waterford and Ledyard basically down to the last play. I mean, it wasn't the most well-played game that we ever saw, but it was certainly fun. And, I was so impressed with Lucas Rassicot, the Waterford quarterback. Now, I was sort of in the camp that I don't know why you would move your starter out to receiver, Chase Nolda. I didn't get that, but I gotta say, that kid Rassicot played a really good game.
He did, and I think the answer to that question is Nolda, with no experience at all at wide receiver, not only caught in one of our most physical touchdown catches and runs of the year, but has shown himself to become an increasingly more reliable target for Rassicot. So the answer might be, with Nolda as quarterback, you've got that. With Rassicot at quarterback, you have maybe a similar skill set, and now you have a wide receiver in Nolda on top of it.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for that. I mean, the kid's probably not happy getting moved from quarterback, and all he did the other night was play really hard, and that touchdown, that lunge into the end zone. I was talking to one of the officials after the game who was on that side of the field. He said that was a great play.
Yeah, I don't want to make too much of it, because one of the things that Rassicot said after the game, which I thought was really great, because he made a point of going up to Nolda after that and giving him, a little bit of love. And he said, we're friends. He's like, we hear that a lot, but they really are. And so, when your friend is succeeding in a role that you had, it's a very challenging thing, because you're happy for your team and you're happy for your friend, but you're also wanting to be a part of it as well. So for Nolda to be able to contribute so much, I think takes the edge off of that. If he was just on the sideline as the backup quarterback, I don't think that would be good.
Yeah, if I weren't doing the game story Friday and I were doing a column, it would have been on those two guys and how. The thing that struck me the most, aside from their play, is they are baby-faced.
Yeah.
They're really young-looking, and those aren't the guys who are supposed to own the football field. And they did.
So I know Chase, because I know the Nolda family. I had a conversation with Rassicot's father and mother after the game, and that's the thing I said. I go, when their helmets are on, and I'm guilty of this often, and I have Peter to remind me of this sometimes, that, sometimes it's easy to treat them like they're professionals or like they're grown men or like they're, and then they come over to you and they take their helmets off and you're like, oh my gosh, they're babies. They're children. And you're like, how do you play like that when you're like this? So that was a great game. What other things stood out over the weekend to you as far as your rankings?
Well, I'm going to let everybody know not to pay attention to my
I'm not sure they
top
were.
15.
I'm not sure they were anyway.
Because,
but okay.
because I left a team out. So Hand lost. Hand lost to Cheshire. Not a great loss, I will say. Hand lost to Cheshire, and I had intended to move them down, and I mistakenly moved them out. So they will be back next week.
Now Cheshire is 3-2 and in everything, but it's not a good loss for Hand. Would you say it would be similar to if Killingly lost to Massac? Would it feel
yes,
like, it would
similar.
feel like that, right?
Yeah, and I have a feeling that I think Killingly not only needs to win Friday, they need to win Friday. They need to put it on them just so the voters don't lapse into, well, they only play they only play out there in that league.
Right.
You know, if you put 50 on them they might have to.
Yeah.
It's sad, but it's true.
Well, I think that since we've talked about Killingly in Hand, we definitely need, in 2 weeks when we're back doing this again, we're going to debut the CIAC rankings as far as the each division and where they stand. Because right now, Killingly and Hand appear to be the best teams who we don't want to see playing each other until the finals. Right now, Nanawag, who is undefeated, is number one. But we gotta take a look at that, because a Killingly Hand semifinal would feel anticlimactic. Yeah,
yes.
it would. So we'll take a look at those moving forward.
And I just want to say, I have Fitch 15th on spec, because I think of what they can do. I think they're going to, but I mean, are they the 15th best team in the state? No.
So if Hand was in there, which you would have normally,
I would probably have them like 8 or 9.
So would Fitch not be there?
No, I'd probably have. I see what I did. Okay, I put Cheshire where I was going to put Hand.
So they would have been at 13.
Yes, they would have been 13. That's just my mistake. The other game that I did, I moved Wilton up. The FCAC continues to just beat each other,
right.
and it's hard to shuffle those teams around, because you don't want to. I don't want to punish somebody for losing to a good team.
So New Canaan and Greenwich will play each other
at some point. Yes,
and
next week.
So that's the game that now I've maintained, and I will maintain, that if Greenwich beats New Canaan, Greenwich will leapfrog Killingly into the number 1 spot. And if New Canaan beats Greenwich, New Canaan will stay in the number 1 spot. But we got to start seeing these teams playing each other as well. Windsor's going to have to be playing somebody of that ilk soon as well.
If New Canaan loses that game, I will vote. I'll vote Killingly 1.
Looking at other teams that are undefeated, Wilton, Berlin, and I bring Berlin up because what I mentioned yesterday in the power rankings about New London was maybe I misread New London a little bit, in so much as they lost to Berlin, who's undefeated, they lost to Killingly, who's undefeated, and they lost a 2-point game to Stonington, who's I think better than we gave them credit for at first, because Stonington's 2 losses were to WCA, who is undefeated, and Waterford, who's got 1 loss. So Stonington's combined teams are 9-1 that they've lost to. So I think looking at New London, all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? That's a Killingly and Berlin's a lot for a team of that young developing team to have to play. So those are the remaining undefeated teams. What do you got with Windsor, Peter?
So Windsor is in double M this year, and I mean they're playing 2-3 Conard, 1-4 Simsbury, 2-2 Southington, 1-4 East Hartford, 2-2 Bloomfield. So Windsor could run the table.
Windsor should run the table, which would probably get them as high as 4 or 3 if Killingly runs the table or the winner. Now Greenwich and New Canaan have other games. I mean, there's always a Cheshire, there's always a Darien, there's always somebody on the schedule. So I will expect those guys to lock each other up.
Yeah, I mean, Greenwich, interesting. New Canaan, Ludlow, Wilton, Darien, Staples. So not a cupcake
That's a gauntlet.
the rest of the way.
Wilton, who is currently 8 on Mike's poll, Darien, who's currently 6, and Staples, who's currently 10. So if you're, is that Greenwich or New Canaan?
That was Greenwich.
So Greenwich has 4 top 10 teams remaining, including number 1. I mean, that's
a lot.
I mean, you could, I don't think they're going to, I think they'll probably split, which keeps them alive in terms of the postseason. But, like, that's a lot to ask.
And Case, I mean, there's 5 FCX schools in the top 10 here. And they all should be there in some.
Which goes back to our conversation of 2 weeks ago about why does the ECC struggle in football? Well, this conference clearly doesn't. And what does New Canaan and Greenwich and Darien and Staples is where, Mike?
Westport.
What do they all have in common? I would say in general, resources is the thing that jumps to mind. But so that will that's a good segue for us to talk about our game Friday. Friday night, Bacon Academy, who was undefeated and lost at home to New London, is now on the road at Griswold. Griswold's only lost this year, week 1, to Seymour, who's also a very good team. And we've seen them shut out Ledyard. And we know Ledyard. I think we got a pretty good handle that Ledyard's a very good team. So I think I said yesterday I think Bacon's punching outside of its weight class on this one. I think that Coach Ladiga said that Bacon's has gotten off to terrible starts in their games. They're putting themselves kind of in a hole. That they not only can that not happen, they need something positive to happen early. I think that's a very tough task for them to go to Griswold. Griswold coming off of a big win over Woodstock, where that offense. This is an offense that can score 40 at will, and this is a defense that shut out Ledyard. It's why I call them scary.
Well, think about it. Okay, Ledyard has run in excess of 300 yards against NFA and Waterford, and got against and Griswold shut him out. Pretty good.
Yeah. I think that Griswold's in a really good spot right now. I'm looking forward to this game. I feel like this is to Peter's point. This is the beginning of the Division III showdowns. Griswold's going to play Stonington after that. Bacon still has Stonington. So we saw Division II. Really, was just it was last week was the Division II championship for all intents and purposes. So Division III, however, everyone's starting to play each other.
Well, Griswold as a school, it intrigues me right now, okay, because their football team is probably going to make the playoffs.
I think so,
and they may have the best basketball team in the ECC too this year. They might.
Now you see
they got a lot of.
There's a whole people. There's one school.
They might.
All of Fitch is right now throwing tomatoes at the screen for you.
Fine.
So is NFA. So is New London.
Okay. Okay.
But here's what does good.
Nobody is better coached in the ECC. I will say that
he's a great coach. What does Griswold? So I mentioned Griswold, New London, and NFA. What do they all have in common?
Griswold, New London, and NFA. Well, two wear green. Now,
Peter, you have an answer for what does Griswold, New London, and NFA have in common?
Well, they're not homophones.
They're not homophones.
They're in the day holiday classic.
They are 3 of the day's holiday classic basketball teams. December 23rd, live from Mohegan Sun. We're going to get Griswold, Old Lyme, New London, NFA, and then the Notre Dame of West Haven and Arkansas-bound Abdu Toure versus West Haven High School, who you saw last year in a classic versus New London. So that's what those 3 basketball teams have in common. They'll all be at Mohegan Sun in the Day Holiday Classic. But they are not homophobes. That is correct. My wife immediately got homophobe, by the way. She was very, very upset that Peter did not. He was killing himself.
Well, I'm never going to forget that.
No, and I've seen this. It was a teachable moment.
Do you play connections on the Times, the New York Times game?
No.
They're big on the. I didn't even know what it was. I had to learn. Big on.
Yeah, we did Colonel and Colonel.
Big on homophones.
Colonel and Colonel. Dear and dear.
Yeah.
So 6:30 tip, 6:30 kick, 6:30 kickoff Friday night. The Phillies What's on the Menu pregame show will kick off at 6:15. We'll have Bacon Academy live at Griswold. That should be a very good one. And then as a reminder, the following week we do not have a football game as we prepare for championship week, which is the girls' soccer finals at Griswold on Monday the 27th, the boys' soccer finals from Ledyard on Tuesday the 28th, and the girls' volleyball championships from New London on Wednesday the 29th. So those 6 games in 3 days will be our focus that week. I will, next week, I will do football power rankings, and in lieu of Mike and I doing football stuff, I will do power rankings for the soccer, or a little more like a preview of what the tournament should look like in soccer for the boys, girls, and for volleyball. And then we'll be back to football, and we're deciding on what that game is going to be, but we're starting to hone in on it a little bit based on
flex. We're going to flex.
We're going to flex. So that brings me to the question of the week for Mike DiMauro. This is a question that is also posed out there to all of you, all of our viewers out there who have been so very good about giving us your opinion. Here is the question of the week. If you could change one thing about high school football, it could be in Connecticut, it could be in general, but if you could change one thing about high school football, what would it be? And I'm going to say that there are some options I'll give you. For example, you could change the transfer portal, which has become an increasing difficult joke in the area. You could change schools of choice and or the tournament and how it's run. You could change how what we allow coaches to do or not to do. Whatever. What's the one change you would make?
I'm going to go in the weeds here on your case. Okay. Excuse me. I would make pass interference a spot foul if it's beyond 15 yards, which they do not do right now.
Yes, third and 20, tackle the guy.
Yes, and I was on a sideline this year in which coaches were saying that, and to me that runs counter. That's counter to football. So when these kids, if they go off and play in college, they've been taught, we'll tackle the guy, and then that's how you were in a spot on the bench. That bothers me.
I think that's a valuable thing.
You were hoping I would say. I can say something else.
I do know, but I feel like I said you could cure homelessness and or poverty.
I'll give you another one.
And you said I've developed a new Band-Aid.
All right, I'll give you another one. Start earlier, end earlier, because I do not like the way football bleeds into the winter season. I think we could start third weekend in August. Mm-hmm. We would end November 1st-ish. There would be a week between the quarter, the semi, and the final, and plenty of time for the kids to recover for basketball and wrestling.
And you would do away with
Thanksgiving's out. Yes, I would get because in the last couple of years, Killingly Wrestling had to reschedule its opening meet because they didn't have enough guys. Where are you going?
Well, you just said to get rid of Thanksgiving football, and I'm pretty sure that that there's going to be some form of lightning strike coming from
and last year, Waterford basketball went into its season opener, and 4 starters had 1 practice because football ran so long, and they needed some time when the season ended just to, soar and to recover. I don't like the fact that teams that make the finals play 4 games in 17 days. That's not. No trainer thinks that's good. None.
Peter, do you want to weigh in on this one at all?
I'm with Mike get rid of Thanksgiving football, and it's tough because we are right in the middle of where it's important. Right, it is important in New London, and in Waterford, and in East Lyme, and in Stonington, and in Norwich, and over Ledyard and Groton. Montville doesn't play on Thanksgiving. They don't play on Thanksgiving in Valley. Are we really excited for the Thames River Nonawog game? Are we really excited for the Killingly Woodstock
I know
game?
For a fact that Bacon Academy and Ram have a very long tradition, and I don't think we would skip a beat if we got rid of that if that game was played not on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, but
I mean, it's too bad. It's a wonderful tradition in a bunch of places, but I think the 3-round of 8 division playoffs is incompatible with Thanksgiving. So pick one.
and we get, your favorite thing, but this is how we've always done it.
Can't stand that.
I'm sorry. It's just it's got to go.
Well, I mean, for the same people that believe there's no such thing as evolution. But that's what evolution is. The evolution is improvements made. It doesn't mean you do things, or maybe it's think of a shark, right? You got to keep swimming to survive. But so I guess I'm going to pivot the topic to for those out there. Should there be Thanksgiving Day football? You can't have 38,000 teams in the playoffs and have Thanksgiving football. I do think we've realized that that's a problem. I personally think we should just start a tournament September 1st. There should be no more regular season games whatsoever. We just put everybody in the tournament. We play round robins for a while, and then we crown state champions on Thanksgiving, because we pretty much let everybody in now anyway. When I hear teams going, well, we can't go to 6-4 because then we might be on the bubble, I still come from a place where the 1990 Fitch team, 94 Fitch team, went undefeated and didn't get in, right? So do I think 2 is the right number? I don't. Do I think 8 is the right number? I don't. Not when you have 5 divisions, 6 divisions. Like, 50 teams is too many. It's just so. So I think I wouldn't change Thanksgiving. I'd rather change the postseason and keep Thanksgiving, because I think the Thanksgiving tradition is worth keeping compared to having 40 teams in the postseason. But my number one change would be, I think the transfer thing, starting now in high school, because we keep doing things earlier, it started with prep schools, right? Kids were leaving to go to prep schools. Now kids are just leaving to go pick the school that they want to play at. And there are kids that we made fun of, and I put that in quotes, a player years ago because he went to 3 different high schools. Mm-hmm. There is a kid right now who's in his 3rd different high school of this season.
Cool.
And so, like, that bothers me. I think it's college is the wild, wild west, but college is professional sports, whether we like it or not. It is. College is professional sports. So, to me, the reason why you're supposed to leave your school is for better, if you say it's for better academic opportunities, because it's still school. High school sports are an after-school activity. They are not your pathway or your conduit to professional sports. So if you are going to school and you want to go play a sport, the only reason you should go play that sport someplace else is if there is somehow an elevated opportunity academically. And I get I get the idea that this year we don't have a quarterback to throw us the football, or I get the idea that this year my line's not very good. But there are lessons to be taught in how to overcome adversity. There are lessons to be taught in how to let things play out and maybe get better. And I look at some of the teams that we thought were victims of losing players, and they are rallying around the players that are there. And I think that the lessons we teach by letting kids just bounce around place to place because they didn't like the way the wind was blowing, or they didn't get complete and utter acquiescence from administrations and things like that, bothers me more, because I think that's a lesson that we are enabling that is a bad lesson, and it fits right in with my get off my lawn. But this is a generational thing.
It's playing sports is a privilege case, not a birthright. A public school has the obligation to educate. Nothing saying you got to be on the football team.
Now, So I view sports and extracurricular activities like the band and drama and clubs. I view these a little differently. I don't think that they are a privilege, though they are a privilege. I think they actually, because I spent 28 years in the juvenile justice system, I happen to know what pro-social activities does for youth. It drastically reduces their risk to be involved in criminal activity. It drastically reduces their likelihood of being involved in drugs and alcohol. It vastly improves social skills. That's why they're called pro-socials. It dramatically increases their ability to work socially, to have empathy, to be able to work together. So I think that they actually, I don't believe we should tie academics and after-school activities together. In other words, if a kid's failing all of his classes, I think that's even more reason why they should be involved in a school activity, not to disenfranchise them from the school. That being said, it's not your right to just go where you want to be today, because today this is the place that has given you the answer you want, and that troubles me a little bit. And I know there's a lot of complications, and when you're looking at scholarships and things like that, there's a lot of pressure for that, but I'd like to see kids stay where they are, stay with their schools, stay with the kids they played with growing up, and see what happens that way.
Well said.
Thank you. I'm going to take a lot of heat for that one. So in a nutshell, keep Thanksgiving, make the playoffs shorter and less, and let's try to keep kids in the schools they're supposed to be in. And then my final thought, not to be discussed now, is in Connecticut and in New England, we have a backwards system of what sports play in what season. If baseball and softball were played in the fall like they should be, and soccer was played in the spring like it should be, what would the effects be on the kids and the sports that we have, including football? That'll be a question for next time.
I love it.